Rest in peace and screw tonight, we take it slow.
Ooh, what is up everybody? Welcome back to This Is Hip Hop. I'm welcoming myself back also because I've been gone for like over a week. I apologize deeply. I was on a bit of a vacation and then I had other responsibilities to attend to. I couldn't put out as much content as I would like to. But a lot of albums, I don't know if they're great or not yet, have dropped this week, including Astroworld, which has some of the biggest hype of this year, with Travis Scott's Rodeo being one of the most praised albums in his discography. People were excited to see, can he do it again? Can Travis Scott do it again on Astroworld? So, sorry for being gone, but I'm back. But actually, before I start this, I just want to let you guys know I am going away to Colorado this weekend for a whole week, so I'm gonna try and record as many videos as I can, and then schedule those or have someone else upload them for me. But you know, I can't promise a whole stack, but I'll try to do my best. I already have listened to a few and have started typing up my notes. And with that being said, I also typed up my notes for the new Mac Miller review, and I'm actually going to record that right after this. So that'll be up very soon. But without further rambling, let's get to it. Stargazing, the track that was used for the promotional video for this album, starts off this highly anticipated album as strong as possible, with Travis Scott rapping about how crazy his life has been getting and how he's been coping with that over this very lonely, introspective, and spacey beat with some of the hardest 808 claps I've heard. I think it's a great and powerful opener, and I also think it shows off just how well Travis Scott is able to use his voice to his advantage, with many ad-libs being twisted to add to the mood a little bit, falsettos to shift the perspective, and other things like that. Travis is really performing on this track. After we get through the first half of Stargazing, we take the literal roller coaster down into Astroworld, I guess you could call it, or the second half of the song. And the second half of the song is so tranced out and dirty with some fat and grimy bass, backspinning hi-hats, arpeggiating electronic additions and risers that change throughout Travis's verse. If we were stargazing on the first half of this track, then I feel like we just took the roller coaster underneath like some tunnel, and now we're just in pitch darkness with Travis Scott kind of surrounding us with his vocal delivery and these weird electronic things that are going on. It's a really cool psychedelic kind of experience of a song, and I think as an opener it's pretty perfect to start off this album. So next up we have Carousel, which keeps a little bit of that psychedelic experience going by having these haunting vocals surround you, kind of like you're going around in a circle or something. And the icy electronic effects are kind of carried over from Stargazing, which plays well into the theme of the album. It's definitely an okay song, but it's not one I'm necessarily jumping up and down about. I think the Frank Ocean feature is really nice when it comes to the chorus, and he has a great vocal performance, but when it comes to Frank Ocean's verse, I just feel like it's unnecessary and the writing is a little bit weak, especially when we get to the back end of his verse on this track. And Travis's go-to ad-libs when it gets to the end of Frank Ocean's verse just sound really corny and overused to try to make up for how weak the writing is. Still, I do think the production is interesting at this point, to say the least, with these Carousel-like vocal effects and the icy but playful electronic melody that sort of gives this theatrical effect to the whole song. Sicko Mode for a lot of people is something they're either gonna love or they're either gonna hate because of these abrupt beat changes that happen twice throughout the song. But personally, I think Sicko is a pretty fire collab between Travis and Drake. When I first heard the intro with Drake on it, I did feel like, okay, this is pretty comfy for Drake to be on, especially with Tay Keith handling part of the production, who also made Look Alive. Then the fake beat drop into Travis's first verse just stopped me completely in my tracks, because this is one of the hardest beat drops I've heard in a while. And I don't necessarily care that it was abrupt, because even though a lot of people do seem to like the Drake introductory kind of moment going on there, I feel like just cut him off. Like, whatever, I've heard enough Drake this year, it's totally fine if you just cut him off for 1 second. The claps, the distorted electronic effect going on, with the buzzing of those spacey keys in the background, a slight sampling of other artists on this track for hype through the use of ad-libs like Biggie, like Uncle Luke from 2 Live Crew, and Sheck West, who appears later on this album. All fire, all hype as hell. And I don't consider Travis Scott to be a crazy lyricist or anything. I think most people kind of understand that he's very middle of the road when it comes to writing. But on this track, Travis Scott is actually nice with the lyrics. I do like the Texas homage that comes on a lot of tracks on this album, but in this case it's more of through the use of effects, through the chopped and screwed bridge with Sway Lee coming in, which also has a second fake beat drop that continues into Drake's actual verse, and then later on Travis's verse for the second beat switch up on this song. And the third beat switch up on this song, with Drake starting his actual verse on it, sounds like something off of Drake's If You're Reading This It's Too Late mixtape, which kind of actually fits the vibe of this album in general. That mixtape is kind of familiar to me for some reason when it comes to how icy this sounds. I think it's a phenomenal song. It's definitely interesting. I think the part of the beat where Travis is mostly rapping on in the middle is just super raw. Yeah, you could say that Drake is kind of pandering to the current trends of rap on his verse with the popping half his hand or like whatever. It's still decent. It's not the best Drake writing I've ever seen, but honestly, this amused me more or entertained me more than most of the stuff off of Drake's record, so I really can't complain at this point. It just feels like Travis Scott is here with an entourage of people, especially with the usage of those ad-libs on here from multiple artists, and it's just so hype, it sounds raw as hell, and I think it's a great song. DJ Screw is remembered as kind of helping to pioneer that chopped and screwed sound that the Texas scene, mostly the Houston scene, has attached itself to for quite a long time at least. And this song serves as kind of an homage to DJ Screw and the whole screwed up clique in general. And Travis Scott actually used Big Hawk using that screwed and chopped effect for the bridge on the previous song, Sicko Mode. It's kind of fitting that Travis puts this after Sicko Mode, especially with that slowed down and I guess you could say screwed and chopped ending for that song. It's definitely a more R&B vibe, with the production being handled by Travis Scott himself and FKI the First, which has worked with a multitude of artists. I remember first seeing him actually because he made White Iverson for Post Malone. And speaking of Post Malone, Sway Lee is really able to replicate that sort of sound on this track. The smooth and drawn out vocal delivery that Sway has on here is great, and the chorus draws you into that slow and psychedelic production. And it's also weird but very cool in a way to hear Travis Scott use the word slab in one of his verses, just because I feel like if you asked anybody who has listened to Travis Scott and listened to Houston slab music or music that has a heavy influence from Houston artists, if they thought Travis Scott was a Texas artist, they probably would not guess that. It's like the furthest state they would think he's from. I don't know, just a random thought I had. Anyway, another beautiful song. I love the slowed down pace of it after these previous songs, and I love the overall mood that it's able to create. Stop Trying to Be God is probably my favorite cut off this record. We get this kind of demented, jittery intro right into some of the best use of Kid Cudi's hums I've heard. Stevie Wonder plays some fantastic and otherworldly harmonica on here, with Philip Bailey, one of the lead singers from the group Earth, Wind & Fire, whimsically kind of delivering the chorus alongside Kid Cudi's hums, which is one of the weirdest combinations ever that seems to work out pretty well. Personally, I think it's one of the most majestic and unexpected combinations on a rap album of all things that works out. Travis really pulls through on the lyrics and tries to cover a topic, not trying to appease everybody and thinking you could do everything, and also staying true to your roots and keeping those close to you who deserve to be there in a more fresh and kind of entrancing way. Travis's flow on here sounds almost like he's in this trip that this song provides for him, and it doesn't really come off preachy at all. It almost sounds a little bit reflective, like he's thinking about the experiences that have led him to come to this conclusion. Then James Blake comes on at the end in this very fitting and saintly manner and delivers a very haunting and forewarning vocal performance that gives me some very very late David Bowie vibes. I feel like this song, if anything, even if you don't really like the song, or maybe you think the harmonicas are a little bit overplayed at the end, shows just how well Travis Scott has worked on compositional elements when it comes to writing songs. It sounds very different from anything else that other mainstream rappers are trying to do, and at the same time, I think it's personally some of his most seductive work and some of his best work that he's ever put out. Another crazy collaboration comes right after, with Travis Scott bringing new talent onto his record, from Juice WRLD, a Chicago artist, and Sheck Wes, who he actually recently signed to his record label. And I think we have an interesting dynamic between Juice WRLD and Travis Scott on this record when it comes to portraying parties, for them at least, with Juice WRLD kind of being the after party and how the party never dies, because even after the party, he's still taking drugs to deal with the things that he's dealing with. And Travis being more like a life of the party, which it seems he likes to be, especially at his shows, with him bringing some real energy on his verses, with those arpeggiating electronic effects adding some real impact to his faster flow. The bridge slows it down a little bit with the spacey vocal additions, and I think creates a great, more removed space for Sheck Wes to deliver his iconic chorus on here. And the slight switch up at the end with the constant synth chord kind of playing through the production gives a nice dying down effect to the party, and a good outro to the end of the track, I think. I can see Travis Scott bringing Sheck Wes out to his shows and just having a lot of fun with this track. And it's still compositionally interesting. It's not as mind-numbing as a lot of the music might be coming out these days. Skeletons offers a very ethereal and almost circus-sounding atmosphere provided by Kevin Parker from Tame Impala, which he's almost kind of known for. More psychedelic is what I'm trying to say when it comes to this song. And I think it's thematically fitting for the name of the album. The Weeknd and Pharrell, I think, do a very good job when it comes to their high-pitched vocal performances on here that kind of escape into the psychedelic experience of this song. And Travis Scott has a very weird and nonchalant vocal cadence on here that I think fits pretty well. I look at this song with The Weeknd and Pharrell not really being used as features. I mean, what they're saying really has nothing to do with anything at all. It's more just trippy and psychedelic, talking about the ocean or whatever. I see them being used more as instruments to fill that upper register of the song and add to the tranced out vibe that it gives off. What I mean is that they're almost like another instrumental addition onto the song in a good way. It's not like they could be thrown out. No, I think they do add a lot of vibrance to the song and a lot of emotion and feeling to it. And I like that Travis Scott isn't just featuring people on his songs to just have a verse on here. He's using what I think he does very well and is recognizing how else people's voices could be used instead of just providing a verse. How they can add to the production, not just in their lyrics or what have you, but in how they actually sound and relate to the rest of the production. And I think he does a great job of that on here. I don't personally see myself tripping out anytime soon and listening to this, but I definitely see the appeal of this, and I definitely see that there was some effort by the team put into this to really create an experience of a song. Wake Up almost feels like a little bit of an intermission from the rest of the tracks that came before it, with The Weeknd doing what he does best, and that's being very sexually straightforward. The guitar melody is very simple on here, but also very raw, and I guess you could say that rawness kind of complements the rawness of the lyrics to some extent. And particularly on this track, I think the drum pattern is maybe overlooked. It's decently intricate and kind of interesting, and it has me strumming along, no pun intended, to hear what Travis Scott has to say in his verses. And he doesn't really have much to say, but in the chorus I feel like he does find some emotion, and he strays away from falling into a very easy and monotonous pattern that he could have went with for it. And honestly, Travis's singing performance on here as a kind of duet to The Weeknd's is pretty good. It's a really nice, slow-paced song this deep into the track list, and I do really just love that guitar in there for some reason. I think it was a great choice on this song, and it gives it a little bit of a more psychedelic flair. I don't really want to call it psychedelic, but you know what I mean. It doesn't sound like a normal R&B kind of love song with the topics being mostly about sex and drugs on here kind of combined. Overall, pretty good. Nothing amazing, but it's still a good track and definitely something I'll probably come back to. 5% Tint comes up next, and it's probably one of the very few real low points on here when it comes to the track list. I think the circusy piano on here is just a very weak melody for me, and it makes the creepy laughs going on around you in the production just sound a little bit corny when I feel like they could have been used to better advantage. I do like the ending of the song, even though it does sound very relatable to the song Wolves by Kanye. There is a lot of Kanye influence on this album in general, and I appreciate that Travis Scott this deep is trying to experiment a little bit with the sound in general, but this song just really didn't stick with me. I have a very similar issue when it comes to NC-17 on here, in that the melody really isn't a high point for me when it comes to it being compared to the previous tracks on this album. I think Travis sets a very high standard when it comes to earlier parts of this album, and I think that just having these simple chimes kind of lead me through this track doesn't really do much, and it's not as exciting or interesting. I think 21 Savage does a decent job on his verse, even though his ad-libs are like very in your face and almost kind of weird. And Travis Scott uses a flow that's very reminiscent of other tracks on his discography. And honestly, the bridge and the chorus aren't really too exciting either. It sounds like it could have just been a sequel to Ghostface Killers, which 21 Savage and Travis Scott did together on 21 Savage and Metro Boomin's collab album. It's definitely just mediocre compared to the rest of the songs before this. Luckily, 5% Tint and NC-17 are over, and we can go on to enjoy the rest of this album, mostly. On Astrothunder, we have some really stacked production credits with some noticeable influence from Thundercat and maybe some guitar playing by John Mayer at the end here. I'm not exactly sure, but regardless, I really enjoy the simplicity of this song. These small electronic effects make it seem like you're in a cosmic shower and you're just drifting through space as Travis Scott gently delivers his lyrics to you. I mean, there's barely any writing on here, which makes a lot of sense to me in this case. I think that Travis Scott may be unsure of where his life is heading, but he's not really thinking about it too much or putting too much thought into it anymore because of how things have been turning out with his new family, with how his career is going. He's still having those thoughts, but it's not as prominent as it might have been in the past. This song just creates a great slow-down atmosphere after a couple of subpar songs, I think, and it shows that Travis Scott still has a few gems waiting for us towards the end of his album. Yosemite keeps the very relaxed vibe going with a fluttering flute and a very melancholic and mellow guitar, as well as a very relaxed delivery from everybody on this track, including Travis, who takes notes from Kid Cudi on the hums. And I don't really know what happened to Nav's verse on here. It's almost like it really isn't there. It's right at the end. Some people probably, missed it. I don't really find anything wrong with it in regards to the rest of the track. Nav in general is someone that I don't really expect too much lyrical content from anyways, but I feel like they could have just thrown it out. I guess if you want to stack the features on your album, this is one kind of weird way to do it. It's more of a middle-of-the-road kind of song for me. It's something that I probably won't be returning to too much, but I still enjoyed it on the first couple of listens. I can happily say that I'm 13 tracks deep into Astroworld, and the chorus on this song is phenomenal. The groove is very seducing and chilling, thanks not only to Don Toliver and Travis Scott's vocal performances, but also the dark and atmospheric production on the track, thanks to some layered pianos, I think? It's hard to tell, but it does create a great space for the very chilling and sharp delivery from Don and Travis. And I didn't really know who the hell Don Toliver was before this track, so I do look forward to seeing more stuff from him now. Takeoff and Quavo from the Migos make an appearance on Who? What? And personally, I do think that Quavo did a better job on this, even though I do know that Takeoff is a fan favorite. I do think Takeoff's verse on here was just a little bit okay, whereas Quavo actually had more time on the track actually to affect the overall mood of the song. He actually gets into his delivery a decent amount. It's not just boring old Migos flow. But I guess Takeoff didn't really have the room or the time, the actual feature length on this song to make that big of a change, so I can't judge him too hard. The song itself brings in a whole host of weird and interesting instruments, from the church-like piano to these crazy Transformer-esque robotic noises, and pretty hard-hitting drum patterns. I was worried when I did see these features on this track that Quavo and Takeoff would kind of oversaturate the song with the typical Migos flow and feeling to it and just drag it out and kind of make me bored. But I do think that they actually did a decent job on here. Nothing spectacular. They didn't really experiment with their general style all that much, but it does work out decently well. It's a solid banger, 14 songs in. And Butterfly Effect is up next, and I won't really make a comment on that because, I mean, it's like a year old at this point. It's still a good song. I liked it at the time when it came out. Obviously, it's a little older now, so my opinion might have changed, but I'm not gonna judge it because I did think it was good a year ago. It definitely fits in to where it's placed. Okay, we're back. I literally thought I just deleted all my audio files for this recording, so that would have sucked major ass. But anyway, back to the record. Houstonfornication is up next, and it finds Travis kind of flexing a little bit and showing off how far ahead he is than everyone else. The distant, layered vocal effects on here mixed with this very hard drum pattern does give off the effect like Travis is off living in the future somewhere on the moon, and we're just not even close to his level. And I guess that's what you're supposed to do on a song where you're trying to flex as much as you can. And I don't really mind this song that much. It was pretty good, I think. It is kind of starting to wear on me. A lot of these sounds kind of feel like they're a little bit reused, like the vocal additions a lot of the times. They're just very spacey, and I wish he played with the vocal effects a little bit more to kind of change up the styles of them and the patterns instead of just having them create the space. But overall, some good flow switches. It doesn't really get that boring. Solid. Coffee Bean, which I don't really understand why the song is named Coffee Bean. Maybe it's like he's just kind of reminiscing about the stuff he's talking about on here over some coffee. Maybe he feels like a coffee bean in some sort of weird sense. I'm not sure, but it feels like a J. Cole and Kanye kind of inspired track, and the lyrics reflect that, with Travis kind of spilling some of his thoughts about his relationship with Kylie Jenner on here, and the feelings he has being with her, and just about himself. Even though production-wise, lyrically, just style-wise in general, this song is very different from the rest of the tracks on this album, like completely entirely different. I really did enjoy it as a closer to this album. It's very humanizing, and it does show that even after all this great music that Travis is able to make, he still struggles with things close to him. He could seem as far ahead in the future when it comes to his style and his thoughts or whatever. But at the end of the day, we all have to deal with shit, and here he is dealing with that shit and just talking about it and getting it off his mind, as many other rappers have been this year. So, we've listened to the whole album, and I'm not sure if it was Travis's intention to do this, but this album does sound a little bit like an amusement park to me in how really not focused it is or how disjointed it is. And through that, it becomes a little bit more focused in terms of the title, Astroworld. And I feel like what this album offers to me is a bit of an experience for a lot of different emotions. It's like when you go to an amusement park, you can go eat, you can go on giant rides, you can go on smaller rides, you can hang out with a loved one or someone you're dating. There's a lot of different experiences when it comes to an amusement park. So the fact that this album doesn't have one consistent sound, the fact that Travis is playing with his sound a decent amount on here, shows me that he is maybe in some way trying to capture that experience of an amusement park being different for everybody, but still having that great experimental, like new and exciting feeling that it offers. Usually when you go to an amusement park, you come back, or you go there and you're excited, you're hyped, you're like, whoa dude, I just did this, this, and that. It's not an ordinary day. And I think Travis delivers on that mostly. I mean, there's not really songs on here that I think are absolutely horrible. I think some songs are a little bit bland or uninteresting just because they sound like a little bit of a new take on styles and sounds that are already out right now, songs like NC-17 or Carousel. But the high points on this album are actually really good. Some of the high points on this album are things that many rappers won't even be able to do in their lifetime. Songs like Stop Trying to Be God. So I do feel like this album is more of a transitional period for Travis Scott, wherein he's kind of transitioning from staying close to the ground and making sure he has songs that will appease people who not only like him, but like other rappers out right now, and kind of mimicking those styles in his own way, while also, I don't want to say starting to transition, because Rodeo kind of was that breakout transition in a way, but he's starting to transition into more compositionally dense, material, like Stop Trying to Be God, which I really enjoyed. And overall, it shows that he's not stopping from varying up his sound a bit, from trying new things out, working with a lot of influential and talented people, and not only having them there to stack his feature credits, but to actually add some impact to his songs, to give them a canvas to kind of experiment with their sound. I'm not gonna say that this album shows great potential, because I think Travis Scott already showed great potential with his previous work. So overall, I really enjoyed this album. Yes, there were some maybe low points, or I don't even want to call them low points, they were just uninteresting parts. And I think Travis maybe could have even made it more concise, and it just would have been a better album overall. Cut some of the fat out of it. So I'm gonna give this album a 7 out of 10. Still really loved it. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, peace.